Today we're making a new video to take another step towards truth, the bread of life, our Messiah. Brothers, I want to complete what I've been saying lately so you can understand where I'm going and what's really happening. Well, brothers, when you look at that passage in Revelation about the fight in heaven, Michael and his angels against the devil and his angels, now, if you understand it well, it's simple to grasp. Notice Michael and his angels and Moses and his angels. Today I'll explain to open your minds about Moses' plan and the fallen angels. Brothers, be careful in these last days. The fallen ones will try to promote their books. You might ask, brother, which book is from the fallen? Brothers, note, it's the Old Testament. The Messiah's book is the New Testament. Moses and his angels' book is the Old Testament. It includes Jeremiah, Isaiah, and Adam's story. Note, Adam is the first prophet. Then we'll cover the other prophets who vanished, 24 in total. After that, we see Jeremiah, Isaiah, and lastly, John the Baptist. There are 4, but the other 20 are gone. It's hard to know. You need to study deeply to understand. Fallen angels, Masonic gospels, religious leaders of all faiths, Catholic, Islamic, Jewish, Spiritist, evangelical, all of them make people ignorant through lack of knowledge. All right, brothers, when you see Michael and his angels, the Messiah, the 2 witnesses, and the 144,000 sealed ones fought the devil and his angels, that's when Moses, Azazel, and Ishmael enter, or simply put, the beast, dragon, and false prophet. Everyone knows the beast is Enoch. Azazel's using Enoch's body, but he'll swap bodies in the final generation, 1335 days before the Messiah's return. Everyone knows Ishmael is Elijah, supposedly the most powerful, right? Azazel's the strongest now, but before he took the devil's throne, it was Moses. So Michael, the Messiah, the 2 witnesses, and the 144,000 sealed ones fought Moses, Azazel, and Ishmael, or Moses, Elijah, and Enoch, and their angels. So brothers, what's my point? Brothers, demons wrote 90% of the Old Testament. We don't understand. My brothers, Moses is the devil himself. Before Moses came, he prepared the way. Remember the Messiah, a cheap copy, brothers. Note, everything's a cheap Messiah copy. They prepared because they knew the Messiah, elders and apostles would come. So they prepared beforehand to confuse people. Now you'll see where I'm going with this. Again, Michael, Messiah, witnesses and sealed ones fought Moses, false prophets and beasts. they fought him and his angels, expelling them from heaven to earth. Very well. When fallen angels came here, brothers, they had a plan. They knew there was a rescue plan. Note, the fallen angels left 500 million empty homes in heaven. It's just an example. 500 million homes in heaven's realm. So our Father, speaking with the Messiah, the two witnesses, the 144,000 sealed, and all in heaven, said he'd prepare a rescue plan to bring the true believers on earth to the empty dwellings in heaven. That's why the Messiah said, I go to prepare a place. They're ready now. But very well, my brothers, where am I going with this? Listen, my brothers, 90% of Old Testament books were written by demons. The leader then was Moses. Who did Moses send ahead to prepare his way? Did Moses, the devil, send others to pave his path? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and many more. All fallen angels. When Abraham spoke as God, remember the Messiah doesn't lie. Liars are the pigs of religion, hypocrites who deceive and confuse, refusing to acknowledge truth. The Messiah and Paul warned, many among us aren't truly with us. We must be cautious. Truth comes first. If one ignores the Messiah's words of love for God and neighbor, they're not one of us. Very well, let's continue, brothers. Back to our topic. 90% of the Old Testament was penned by demons, fallen angels. 90%. Except Jeremiah, Isaiah, bits of Adam and others. Even those were altered to confuse us. Who first turned against Jeremiah when he spoke truth? His own parents. Jeremiah was handed over by his own parents, his family. As the Messiah warned, in the end times, parents will betray their children. Be very careful with this, my brothers. But to return to the point, Jeremiah is just one example. It happened to all. Now, back to the main topic. 90% of the Old Testament was written by demons. That's why the Messiah said, don't mix old and new. The old deceives and exploits. Isn't it written, love thy neighbor as thyself? One who loves doesn't exploit. Freely received, freely give. You don't see this in the religious system. So to summarize, my brothers, returning to the subject, 90% of the Old Testament is a cheap copy note. It's a cheap imitation. The Old Testament was prepared by fallen angels to contrast with the New Testament. They left bits of Jeremiah's story and a bit of mixing old and new, blending things. Get it? They mixed fallen angels, 24 elders, and prophets to make the Old Testament less demonic. They added a bit of truth, 90% lies, and a touch more truth. Brothers, the Old Testament's a cheap copy from fallen angels to fool people. What did they do next? Look at this cheap imitation, a real knockoff. They combined fallen angels' texts with the Messiah's words and apostles' writings. Fallen angels prepared this book, joining what should have been separate letters. The letters were apart, but they combined them all. The Old Testament, the book of fallen angels and the devil, and the New Testament, the book of the Messiah and the 12 apostles. The 24 elders took bits from the Old Testament and mixed them in to give an air of, to avoid being 100% demonic, as everyone would see through that. Well, Solomon and David were essentially demons themselves. Isn't it written, love thy neighbor as thyself? Yet David spoke of thousands falling at his sides, murderers and bandits. Abraham went out to steal, kill, and destroy. Why did the devil and his angels come to earth? Wasn't it to kill, steal, and destroy? What did Abraham do? Didn't he raid neighboring areas, killing, stealing, and destroying? Wasn't the devil calling the shots? The devil and his angels came to kill, steal, and destroy. Who are the fallen angels today, my brothers? They're out there, plain to see. They're on TV. They're everywhere. Think these are just men behind the scenes? They are fallen angels. They came at the right time to deceive people. Who do you think these religious leaders really are? As God sent the 144,000 sealed and 2 witnesses, the devil sent fallen angels. When you see those Masonic TV preachers stealing and exploiting, who do you think they are? You think only the 144,000 sealed ones came from above? No, my brothers, the fallen angels are here too. Religious leaders worldwide, US, Canada, Europe, Brazil, Middle East, they're fallen angels. They've awakened too, understand. The Father is making the 144,000 sealed ones remember. The same is happening with fallen angels today. That's why these churches are so full. It's them. The leaders are them. They're fallen angels. It's been this way from the beginning. So brothers, 90% of the Old Testament was written by demons, fallen angels, snakes, serpents. When God gave the commandments to the angel for Moses, Satan, our father said, my children will understand. I'm giving the commandments to the world's owner. Look, my children will change everything. So what did they do? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob went out stealing. Isn't it written? Didn't the devil come to kill, steal, and destroy? Didn't the devil and his angels come to kill, steal, and destroy? So Abraham went to nearby areas, killed, stole, and destroyed. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, Solomon, Elisha, Elijah. The widow was starving. They ate her food, then gave flour. What God gives flour and oil to a starving child? Would you give flour and oil to your kids to eat? Don't you see the fallen angels game? You mean the child starving, so give them flour and oil?